Society Against Family Violence. So by the way, this session will be recorded and it will be posted on the YouTube so for others to learn. So actually, we are very glad for Daniel and Kumar to be here. They'll be sharing us about family violence. So maybe right now, I'll just pass this time over to them. Daniel, I pass the time to you.
All right, thanks, William and Louis for inviting us also. We just prepared a short presentation on family violence. Currently, if you want to learn about family violence, often you may need to be in the sector. There isn't much community engagement talks. I think there was some in the past. So now, I mean, on our side, on our organization also, we would like to contribute in this area. SAFV has, I think we founded, Kumar, was it 20 years ago? Okay.
1991.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been quite a while. I think founded by Benny and Kumar and some of the.
No, I'm not one of the founders. I'm not that
okay.
old. Benny's
Some of their
older, sorry.
contemporaries. Benny Bong is a family therapist so he's also still involved, advocating for families, advocating against violence in Singapore. Today, for the structure of the presentation, unfortunately, we weren't able to get our clients in because of the sensitivity also, given that this video is being recorded. We will cover the different types of violence. We will cover some of the resources that volunteers, specifically to the volunteers of this Amaze, the Amaze gathering can tap on. And also perhaps give us some time to reflect and think about what are our own views about violence and harm in society. So without further ado, I think I would just dive straight into the so sorry, I'm having a very bad sinusitis today. Yeah, dive straight into the presentation. Okay, I need to search my give me a moment now. Seem to find my okay, there it is. Okay, the title of the presentation it's Stop Being a Bystander. Currently in the social services, there's a lot done in the remedial space. So what do I mean by remedial, right? When violence has already happened, people are already seeking help, right? They come to the centers. But what can we do to address educating people about violence so that they would seek help, or even to promote a culture in Singapore that is zero tolerant towards violence? As we all know, in Singapore, there has been an increase in the amount of conversation surrounding violence, especially since COVID-19. So COVID-19 was a great time where people became more educated. But unfortunately, it was also a time where we realized that the households in Singapore are not as safe, are not as comforting as it should be. MSF has since launched this is what we call a National Anti-Violence and Sexual Harassment Helpline to include the everyday Singaporean, the everyday person to make reports. But at the same time, we do note that while people do have knowledge about violence, there's a lot of hindrances to report. One could be the lack of wanting to be involved in another person's families, the unintended, but the desire to want to have some form of respect from another person's household, another person's cultural norms. And then we realize that non-action or inaction, we then also become responsible for the continuation of violence in society. If we keep quiet about it, then that is a big issue, because if even within the family, the vulnerable are being abused, then who would speak up for them? Right. And I do understand that with us here today is a bunch of volunteers who are proactively involved in the space that supports the sisters, in the space that supports people who are connecting with society again. So at this juncture, it's important to acknowledge that the people that you are speaking with may be experiencing violence, but you may not know, right? Because people who experience violence, or people who are violent, they may be very good at covering up because of the culture of silence, the culture of what we call it's an increased tolerance and threshold towards harm. A survey done by Ipsos, right, the research body in Singapore, found that 3 in 10 Singaporeans claim that they or someone else, someone close to them, have experienced domestic abuse, right? This quote is from Georgette Tan. It was a joint study by United Women Singapore and Ipsos, and she did highlight that this 30% is still too many. We know that domestic violence can escalate to death. As we have seen in the news reports recently, there have been deaths. And while it may be justifiable, like intellectually, to assume that it's a one-off incident, as practitioners, we also acknowledge that sometimes there is a continuum, right? There were already some form of violence early on in the relationship, right? There was unattended, there was under the wrap, and eventually, right, it exploded into the unthinkable, right? A life being lost. So for this purposes of this discussion today, we will adopt about our Children's Services definition of violence, right? Family violence is the abuse of power within relationships of family, trust, or dependency that endangers the survival, security, or well-being of another person. It can include many forms of abuse, including spousal abuse, elder abuse, neglect, child abuse and neglect, child sexual abuse, parent abuse, and witnessing abuse of others in the family. I just wanted to ask the audience for today, when you think about violence, right? Who do you think would often commit violence, right? If you don't mind sharing, unmuting yourself and sharing. Yeah, yes. Since you have a
Anybody
small group,
wants to share? Yeah.
you make it a bit
I
more.
think there's someone who wrote the chat. Man,
Oh,
there's
Yeah,
someone who
that's
wrote.
me. I think you can put in the chat or you can just pick up.
men, fathers. Anyone else?
I think it's possible for women as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly it will be men.
Yeah, so in terms of statistics, it is true, right, that the amount of men, the reported abuses committed by men, clearly outweighs the amount of abuse committed by women. So it is true, but at the same time, we ought to be careful in how we look at the issue, because anyone can commit violence. I think in the work that I've done so far, one thing that made me question, right, a lot of the cases that I see is really the unexpected. Sometimes, you have like religious personnel, right, who you think are supporting the moral compact of our society, right, being an abuser, or what we call a person who cause harm. Yeah, sometimes there's this very unjust and wrong association we have to those who are successful. Those who are successful are less prone. Those who are successful, those who are influential, are less prone to these things. I mean, if you can see recently, even there's some of the movie stars and whatnot, they have been put under question. There's also been reports about footballers, right, in the recent months, of how they have contributed to abuse. Men, fathers, women, parents, yeah, and whoever else, right? I think that the idea, right, the idea is to question why we think that violence is attributed to a specific population type. In Singapore, I mean, I should have put on the stats, but I didn't put the stats here. Unfortunately, we are also seeing an increase in adult children being violent towards their parents, right? So this means, why do we call it adult children, right? Adult children who live in the same household as their parents, adult children who are still connected to their parents, right, may physically abuse them, right, financially abuse them, emotionally abuse them. Very contextual example, in a recent case that I heard from a colleague of mine, the adult child would drop you know that thing that they burn during seventh month, right? You call them death notes, is it? Or money notes? Yeah.
Hell note.
What do you call that? Sorry.
Hell bank note. Is it?
Hell notes, yeah. Hell bank notes, yeah. Yeah, and I mean very frequently, right? The adult child would just throw it at the mother, right? The adult child also has abused the mother before, lah, right? The mother is about 70 old, not the most supported, right? All her siblings have passed away. Unfortunately, her husband was also abusive to her, but her husband has since passed away. And now the child, right? The child has pushed her and shoved her until she has fallen down. At the same time, she has done. So I was thinking, I was like, hey, actually, because I'm Indian, I'm not very familiar. It took me a while to click that this is a form of psychological emotional abuse, right? Because the idea behind it was that the mother was wishing, the child was wishing for the mother to die, right? But she wasn't saying that I want you to die. She wasn't saying I'm going to kill you, right? But she was doing this action, which was closely tied to what we would call, right, a form of psychological and emotional abuse. How can someone, right, be in our own home and receive such treatment? Yeah. So it can come, from anyone. That's the main thing, right? This is just a infographic, right? To help us. It's taken from a company in the UK, right? The different types of abuse, right? There's physical abuse, verbal abuse. Yeah, physical abuse it speaks for itself, like, right? Hitting, punching, using weapon. I will consider harming pets as physical abuse also, but it could also be seen as physical abuse to the pet, but it's also psychological abuse to the person who owns the pet, right? So if I wants to bring upon distress to another person, I may not need to hurt the person, but I hurt what is meaningful to the person, right? Pets, items, coveted items, right? I've heard of people throwing breaking the urn of a loved one in front of their spouses, right? That will come under psychological abuse, right? Verbal abuse, I won't say the words here because it's recorded. I don't want to have myself recorded, but vulgarities, right? Vulgarities is a big thing, right? Sometimes we normalize it in relationships, right? Of course, because of our learned behavior and the current practices of society. But I mean, to use it in an intimate space where there's always be love and connection and safety, right? To use words, the non-vulgar, it's still vulgar, but like words like slut, right? Words like whore, right? These words, right? These words carry a big weight. And for those of us who work with individuals or families of a different language group, then we need to be aware of these words also, right? So I'm Indian, but my Tamil is terrible, right? Because I learned Malay. Yeah, so I really leverage on my my fellow staff fellow colleagues to help me in this area. Right, sexual abuse, right? Forcing someone to have sex when they do not want to, right? Especially right now, I would say especially in marriages. Especially in marriages. Sex is not a given. When someone is married, right? There still has to be consent. And I know this may question some people's belief, right, about sex and marriage, right? But ultimately, if there's no consent, right, then I would consider it as abuse, right? Right, financial abuse, controlling access to money, having one person making all the decisions on money without the consent or the agreement of the other person. Stalking. We have social abuse, right? Social abuse is isolating the individual, isolating someone from his or her social network or resources. Emotional abuse, right, and spiritual abuse. I think one of the main things to think about is the three questions, right? Does the person have free will? Does the person have a sense of choice, right? Will the person be harmed if the person is not in front of you, or the person is alone with the spouse or the parent or whatnot, right? Will the person feel distressed? Because when we think about harm, we only think about physical harm, right? But we also need to consider, right, the person being distressed. So I have been working with a lady. After the PPO was granted, later I explain what the PPO is, right? No physical violence at all, right? However, every time she goes back home, right, the person who caused harm, right, the person who uses abuse, right, would say things like in a specific language, right? Like she commits adultery, right? She purposely dresses up to attract other men, right? These things every day, right? Every day in her own home, right? Yeah, it's distressing for an individual. Yeah, this is another resource that you could use. I also consolidated some of these resources so that when the slides are sent to you, you can use it in your session, right? Right. A part that the other slide missed out on was some things like using coercion or threats, right? One thing that we note in our work is that if me and my spouse, if I threaten to commit suicide, right, because of the actions of my spouse, that is me psychologically abusing my spouse, right? Because I'm putting her in a state of distress and using suicide, like almost weaponizing suicide, right? And it gets even worse when you have little children around, right, hearing these things, right? So coercion, threats. We also note, I mean, in really the specifics, right, in threatening gazers, right? What is that communicating? Right. So these things are a bit hard to put on paper, but the reason why I'm emphasizing these things is that it's not the most clearest, right? However, when let's say a person who is experiencing violence come to you with these things, the way he looks at me, right? The way he stands, right? You won't be there. You won't be there while this is happening. In fact, when you're there, it may not happen, right? But how do we try to imagine how the person who's abused, who's speaking to us, feels? Another thing I wanted to highlight for this slide is using children. Yeah. So one thing that we note in relationships where there is abuse is that children may be in some sense weaponized, right? For example, a scenario where there's IPV, right? Intimate partner violence, or spousal abuse, right? Violence by husband and wife. What's the safe thing to do is for the woman to leave, right? It's not ideal, unfortunately, it's not ideal. For her to leave and maybe to seek a shelter and whatnot. And for whatever reason, sometimes the children, right? The children are still with the father/husband. The protection services see there's no point in removing the children or whatnot. Yep, and that's the situation that we are in, right? And then the person who caused harm, right, the person who abuses, may start to send messages to the lady saying the children need you, right? You are a bad mother, right? You only care about yourself and your safety, right? So that's what it means when we say using children. The rest of it, I think, is more or less self-explanatory. And I will cover some of it in the later parts of this presentation. Okay, another thing that I wanted to highlight in this presentation, since I have the opportunity to speak with all of you, and something that is not necessarily put in these slides, but I mean these posters were done years ago, is the presence of online harms, right? So online harms could be like revenge porn, right? Revenge porn is one thing that we are seeing coming up. We have influencers who their partners have been posting pornography of them, right? Or taking videos without their consent online, right? It becomes very tricky. It becomes very tricky because sometimes you cannot trace. If the person has multiple partners, you cannot trace who posted online, right? But the issue that we wanted to highlight is that with regards to online harms, sometimes it's very difficult for the victim to seek help, because what are the charges? How to prove, right? How can I prove that it was him or her that did this to me? Many would also go under the because of the amount of shame, right? It's very I mean it's quite common sense, right? It's very shameful to have your private parts or whatever exposed, right? Exposed to the whole world. Right, so this data point was by SheCast SCWO, a fantastic initiative that is focusing on online. Right, they have a team. They have a legal team. Okay. Right, they have a legal team that supports in advocating for the clients to the police. Right, they have a team that also provides counseling. Right, they have a team that try their best also to find solutions to take down these videos, right? Yeah, so but the caveat here is that with online harms, I mean, realistically, if I can share with you, that the legal process is long. It's very long. It's very, very long. I think this is where the strength of the volunteers come in, right? In the accompaniment, right? In speaking out against it, right? In, yeah, I mean, validating the client, or which I'll cover later. Yeah. Another form of abuse that we are seeing in this day and age is that it's because of technology, right? Tech is used for a sense of control, right? I mean, I spoke to this old client of mine that he used to use abuse lah, and then he was sharing with me, right, that he went to Sim Lim Square, and the handphone shop owner offered to insert some sort of device in his phone and the family member's phone, right? So he can track, right? He can track them without their knowledge, right? And this is it's a abuse, right? Because I mean, there's no consent. It is what we call control, right? It's control without the consent or knowledge. I mean, thankfully he didn't for some reason, but because you're sharing with me about how he found out about these things lah, right? His intent of going to the shop was to put some tracker for his children. Now they have these common apps lah that they use. Yeah. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that with technology, things are becoming more complex lah. Oh, more complex, and it may not be always physical violence like what we were taught. Yeah. So I would just take a moment for us to watch this video. It's a classic video from MSF. Some of y'all may have seen it, some of y'all may have not. The first time I watched it years ago, I kind of shook. I shook a bit inside when I saw the video, because it's very realistic, and hence it's very discomforting for me, even though I'm in the work. So I asked you to also take precautions as you're watching this video. If you are too shaken by it, turn down the volume, right? Close the laptop and come back in about 5 minutes. The video is about 5 minutes long. And this video, after the video, we have a short discussion lah. Since we have not too big a group, we can have a short discussion about what we have seen in the video. Yeah. So let me just get the video out. Okay, sorry. Okay. Let me know if you can't hear. Huh?
There's no volume.
Don't you have money? What are you talking about? I work late every night just to give you money.
Oops, sorry, William, did you say something?
Yeah, can just not. Now
Oh,
can hear it.
okay.
For today, and I don't have enough cash.
你就给他们钱吧。讲干净个卖插嘴。Where do you think you're going?
Let me go.
Huh?
Let me go.
I think there's some issue with the volume at my end.
Yeah, suddenly there's no volume again.
Sorry, let me just, everyone can
It
hear?
might be, yeah, it might be easier if you don't play the full screen actually.
Oh, okay. Like this, huh?
I'm not sure. Just now earlier was fine with that screen.
Full screen. Oh, so this way? No?
No. You can try.
Everyone else can hear, or is it just
I can't hear too.
oh, you can't hear at all, is it? Shi Mei?
Yeah, it's a bit jerky, the screen also.
I see. It may be my Wi-Fi.
Maybe you play off like that now.
Like this?
In not the full screen.
Okay, I try and see, yeah.
I'm not seeing the screen yet.
Okay, let me just
I think the video looks very compelling, very gripping. So we do want to see it.
I'm just
Yeah,
making.
it's very realistic.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they did something like this actually. Okay, I will just try again. If anything, let me know. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. This laptop of mine is a bit old.
What is your favorite 水鬼?
Okay, got volume already.
Sorry
Yeah,
about
it's okay.
yesterday.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I promise it won't happen again, okay?
No volume.
Yeah, suddenly no volume again. No volume again. I mean, but I can see the subtitle.
Mm. It's no sound.
Thanks so much, Angela, for sending the link on the chat. I think in the interest of time, I will just continue the conversation about this. I mean, please do watch the video at your own time. And I would have to, okay, I would have to because I have another video lah. So the other video, I think maybe Louis, I sent to you the link. Is that okay? Then you can help me load it while I speak. Or William, is that okay?
You can, no problem. Can just post the link in the chat.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. Let me just, I will send it to you, William. Yeah, so sorry. Just thanks everyone for sticking with us as we navigate these difficulties. So the video depicted something that may be familiar to some of us, foreign to some of us, right? I want to acknowledge that for some of us, we may have come from backgrounds that we were exposed to some form of violence, or we know of people who experience violence. Some of us, as we are watching the videos, right, at the sounds of the hitting or even at the actions of hitting, right, we can't bear to look, because it's unthinkable that this was that happened in our households, or it is too familiar. A large part of being a volunteer is not just being a tool, right? A large part of being a volunteer is being a person, being a person with values, being a person with a history. And I do want to just, before I carry on with the presentation, right, for us to just sit to experience how we felt. unfortunately, violence is not something that is talked about, but it's more common than we think. And unfortunately, if we have been exposed to violence, it may eat us from the inside, right? It may eat us from the inside. It may, in some sense, our body also wants to protect us, lah. So it may just we may not, how you say, encounter it. And this may come up in very odd ways, like in our daily living, right? We may not be one who wants to help. We may gravitate towards abusive relationships ourselves because the language of love included a lot of violence as we were growing up. Yeah, things like that.
Perhaps you can just share about the insight on the victim's perspective on why they choose to still they might have experienced it a few times.
Yeah. Why they stay? I am going to that in a while. Yeah, just wanted to set the context about violence Yeah. Before that. So I mean, Louis brought quite an important point, right, on why the victims stay. I do have a slide on it. I can go to it now. But before that, I will just cover some context for us to understand like this whole dynamic, right? It's not just like a violent incident and then it's as easy as okay, like forgiveness or reconciliation. It's not as simple as that. Or it's not as easy as leaving also, right? There are many reasons why victims don't leave. In the video, we saw okay, there was this plastic bag. I know y'all may not have heard it, but there was this plastic bag where the perpetrator, a person who caused harm, walked in and he said, "I bought your favorite chwee kueh." And what is the function of that chwee kueh, right? Some of us may think, yeah, it's a form of reparation, restitution, right? Is it really reparation or restitution when there wasn't an acknowledgement of what happened, no attending to her hurt? There was an apology, right? I give it to him. There was an apology, but is chwee kueh enough, right? I mean, we can think about it that way. So to understand the dynamics of violence, right, there's this cycle of violence, right? Some of us who are in the sector or who are in helping professions may know it, right? What we call the honeymoon phase, right? The tension building phase and the acute explosion, right? So there was the video began with the tension building where the husband and wife were arguing, right? Arguing about finances, right? Very common in Singapore, very, very common, right? Finances, infidelity, right? These two things destroy marriages in Singapore, right? Because people don't know how to talk about it appropriately. Right, that was the tension building phase, and then there a choice, right? The choice that the abuser, the person who caused harm, right, chose to use violence, right? I mean, in our framing of our languaging, we have to come to that, right? The abuser chose, right? You can be angry, right? But well, I mean, does he hit his boss when he gets angry? Does he hit the bus driver when the bus driver, right, drives while he's still tapping his EZ-Link card? No, right? But he did hit his wife, right? So it is a choice. It is 100% his choice, right? And then what we see is that the abuser, right? I will use the language here, but I mean, some people in the sector, they don't like the word abuser. They like the word person who cause harm, right? They go into the honeymoon phase, trying to ask for forgiveness, which is fine, right? Which is okay. However, once it becomes a cycle, right? Then we know that the victim is trapped, almost seemingly trapped. There's no such thing as always trapped, but seemingly trapped in this cycle, right? Now, for volunteers that are speaking with people who experience violence, right? For the honeymoon phase, something that I like to ask the victims is, what is your love language, right? There is gifts, there is physical touch, there is words of affirmation. What's the other two? Quality time, acts of service, right? And it helps you understand why the person would choose to stay in the relationship. So with someone that I was working with, right, she said actually her love language is words of affirmation. And then she came to realize that every time, right, after the acute explosion, right, after the acute explosion, right, when there is the honeymoon phase, right, the abuser would say things like, "You are important to me. I will change for you." Right? And the cycle happened for years, This is like, they're talking about 5 to 7 years, When did she report? After 4 years. Right? This is how confusing it can be. Why? Because there is love. There was once love, right? There is love sometimes, right? But and that kind of complicates things, right? Because the heart sometimes, right, is confused. Right. So I mean, this is it's a tool, it's a skill. I'm not too sure what I want to call it, but it helps us contextualize the experience of what we call the victim, right? In the experience of violence. Yeah. So I think this cycle may help us understand the complexities in the individual, right? From the honeymoon to the tension building, sometimes there's like during that phase, there's a bit of like hypervigilance. There's no safety that the person feels while he or she is at home, right? And these are signs, right, that the person may have been abused before. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, to Louisa's question, right? Why do people who receive abuse stay? Yeah, I mean, could anyone maybe throw out some answers or whatnot from what you gather or what you think?
I think maybe their family members, they need to transact something like I need you to help me do something, you need to help me do something.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Shimei, right?
Yeah.
Shumei. Thanks so much, Shumei. Yeah. Right. That's one reason, right? We call that yeah, some form of use. Could you elaborate further, Shumei? I just don't want to misunderstand you. When you say do something, right? What does that mean? Like who do?
Maybe support the family, support the child.
Yeah. 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 So there's a bit of guilt tripping by the abuser, right? If you leave me, what's going to happen to the children? They won't have a mother, right? Etc. Etc. In fact, right, sometimes it's not even the abuser. So I had this case. I mean, all these things are anecdotes, right? I'll just openly share in this space, whereby so it was the mother-in-law of the victim, right? The mother-in-law of the person who was abused, the survivor, right? Pleading with her to not stay because of the children, right? I mean, she pleading with her to stay because of the children, and that taught me also the kind of like difficulty a victim is in, right? Sometimes it's not even your spouse, it's your spouse's family, your spouse's friend that come to you and say, "Oh yeah, please give him another chance." And I mean, yes, people do have second chances, sure, but if your life is at risk, then I'd rather you stay alive, right? Stay alive. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, nice one. Sujata. Yeah. Would you want to elaborate more?
Yeah, so I'm talking from real life experience. Recently, a 23-year-old boy committed suicide, and he had been telling his parents to live separately because it was a toxic mother-in-law, grandmother. And the wife had also been saying, and there was a lot of abuse over a period of years. But the father didn't listen because it was his mother. So they put up and put up, but there is a threshold for some people how much they will take. So, yeah, he did unfortunately commit suicide, jumped from his bedroom. But now they feel that if they'd only listened and stayed separately, maybe his life would not have been lost. And society also plays a part. They're very cruel. They're telling the mother that she should have another child at this age, as if it's, you can just bring a puppy home or something. I mean, already they have trauma, tragedy, and grief, and then, people say all kinds of things.
Yeah. I think Sujata raised an important point about power. So if you notice that this child, I mean, he's not considered a child anymore. He's 23 years old, right? What we know as an adult, right? But contextually in the family, right, doesn't sound like he has a lot of power, right? Because of the dynamics, because of the need to depend, right? Yeah, it's difficult, right? The kind of influence, right? Thanks so much, Yuna and Angela, for your points or so. I'll move on to this infographic, which gives us a good summary, right? Yeah, abuse has been normalized for the victims. And especially when normalized, because sometimes they have no one to speak to, right? Not their fault, right? I'm not saying it's their fault, but sometimes they just don't have anyone to speak to about it, right? Many people say they don't want to break up the family, right? I rather my children have a father instead of no father. The belief that he will change, yes, I mean, it's good to have that kind of like forgiveness, right? But to the point that your life may be at risk, I think that's where the psychoeducation of the volunteers or whoever is engaging them must happen. Sometimes it's helpful to be shocked, right? I mean, sometimes when we volunteer or we do work with our clients or whatnot, we want to maintain very professional, or sometimes even a stoic, kind of like very safe interaction, right? But I mean, sometimes I just express, I'm like, oh my gosh, this happened to you. This is not right, right? Attuned to whether the client can receive that kind of approach, right? Someone did mention that fear of further abuse, right? A research study, I think in about 2014 or 2015 in the UK, they highlighted, right, that often they see the reports of abuse come after 7 cycles of abuse. So the person gets abused 7 times, then most of them report. Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, in our work, I think Kumar can also comment, in our work also, right? We see it's many years, and then sometimes, hopefully like a friend knows, or he or she can't take it anymore. But what happens if it's too late? Yeah, because of victim blaming, right? I mean, okay, for the purpose of the infographic, it's she, but it's he or she, right? She believes or she provokes it. She believes that she is the one that is to blame. She is the one that needs to change, right? And that's where we come in to say, no, like violence can never be justified, right? But how do you tell someone that violence can never be justified when perhaps she came from a household where her father and mother would belt her and beat her, right? Something that we hear and we laugh about in Singapore society, right? Parents hitting their children and whatnot. We almost normalize that this is a part of our culture, right? In my discussions, even with my peers, I have to keep challenging their mindsets, right? Like, do you really need to beat a child to teach a child, right? She may not realize it's abuse. Principal social worker from Care Corner commented about this in a recent, I'm not recent, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, the Straits Times article. You could go and read it there also. Yeah, they may not, so this in the forms of psychological abuse or emotional abuse, right? Or coercive control, right? A video that we will share next, right? They do not know that these are forms of abuse, right? Afraid to leave because of a lack of money. I think I'm not too sure whether Amaze, right? The volunteers of Amaze will experience this. But we see that there's a lot of transnational families in Singapore, right? The migration trends are increasing, right? We have individuals from our neighboring ASEAN countries coming in, right? And then when they come in, they become dependent, right? Is everything okay? Not lagging. Okay. Yeah, they become dependent, right, on the abuser, right? They become dependent financially, dependent for housing, right? You have LTVP renewal, which is weaponized a lot of times in the relationships, right? And all of us, right, as we sit here today, some of us may have the privilege of not being abused before. Some of us, unfortunately, we have experienced it, right? Number 10, right? Can we still, right, sit with ourselves and believe that, oh, actually the victim, right, although he or she is experiencing abuse, right, still loves, right? Still loves the person who abuses him or her, right? As we sit with that, it's important for us to understand the complexity of what's going in the mind, yeah, of the person experiencing abuse. At this juncture, I just want to have us to relax a bit, given that we are speaking quite a bit, and watch this video in the UK about coercive control. Yeah, so if William, could you mind in case my laptop? You got the video, right?
Yeah, let me share now.
Okay, I'll stop share.
Okay, I see, right? Can you all hear?
Yes.
I
Can hear.
These are for you, sweetheart.
Oh, they're lovely.
I love you. What have you been doing all day?
I tidied up, I've not stopped. I've just sat.
Look at the lamp. Dust all over that. Get it sorted. What are you doing?
It's my sister.
You really going to answer that when we're having lunch?
I've not seen her in ages.
Go on then, let's spoil it. Go on. Answer it. Go on. Go on. You daft cow. Why have you bought all this expensive junk? I'll have to give you less money next time. Can't do anything right, can you? Yeah, Tom. Your mother's dressed like a clown. You shouldn't see it. It's classic, Liz. The only thing that's missing is a red nose. I'll start calling her Krusty from now on. Hello. I've messaged your dad. Told him we can't make his birthday. Can't be bothered with all your gang ignoring me.
Right.
It's just us. Get these cobwebs cleaned up. Wake up, you lazy pig. It looks ridiculous. Shut up. Think about it before you say anything. Why do you make me do these things? You're not going anywhere. You're staying here. You're staying here. You're staying here.
That was me, stuck in a cycle of abuse day after day, walking on eggshells in my own home. I reached out, I got the support I needed to leave him, and you can too.
Yeah, so the reason why I showed this video is because you see there was no beating. There was no beating. Not one punch or whatever, but there were a lot of punches through his words. A lot of punches through his stares, a lot of punches, right? Through even his presence and his presence and his body language. Right. As I'm sharing with you this also, I note that there is often there's often a lot of fear when we think about people in these kind of situations, right? We think that this individual, they have a choice, right? Why would they allow themselves to be treated like that, right? I won't get involved, right? A passerby may say these things, but I think as people who are interested in supporting others, then we have to call it out, right? Some of these things are, I mean, you can even in our group of friends, right? If we just maybe take some effort to maybe ask, right, how things at home, how's things with your husband, how's things with your wife. We may find that the kind of verbal abuse that people face can be quite shocking to us, or even ourselves, right? unfortunately, over many years, some of these things may be normalized in the relationship. One thing I wanted to point out is when the husband in the video called the wife's father, right, to cancel their plans, right? This also indicates it's a tactic, right, to cut off the wife from her social support network, right? Yeah. So I just wonder, was there anything written or that you saw in the video that surprised you?
We invite some comments, some observations from our audience. I mean, even I was quite incredulous about it, but I mean, let's hear from our participants.
I think like he will love bomb her and future bomb her to make her want to believe, thinking that he will change again. But he will tell lies again after that. So I think it's like he will make use of her because of he knowing that she can love him and he can control her and he will be happy.
Yeah. Shumei, you said two phrases that I found quite interesting. I wonder if you could share with everyone what it means. Love bomb and future bomb.
I think he will say, I want to do this again, or maybe like buy things for her or know what when they communicate, then maybe he will note down what does she like. So when she's hurt, then maybe he will tell her that he won't do this again, or she knows that he knows that she wants a future of them together. Maybe he will say things that will like all the lies about the future to keep her with him. But I think he will still lie to her again. And then I think it's like the loop. And then it will be bad for the brain also for her. Because of the psychological damage.
Yeah, and some part also like forming some form of trauma bond right, with this individual. What would the future look like if I break away, right? What would his parents say? What would his family say? Yeah. Anyone else? Maybe just one more.
Daniel, there's a word here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking, I mean, in a lot of these abuse situations, I mean, there's a lot of power and control politics, So, I mean, in such situations, I mean, there's this verbal abuse, and then let's say, what if this person, all right, this woman who is being verbally abused or what called psychologically manipulated, all that, one day she breaks down, she loses the cool and she go and murder the husband, So on one side, you have the verbal abuse that precipitating the physical, violence,
Yeah.
I mean, then the thing is, how does this look in the eyes of the law? I mean, the thing is, how, I mean, do we prevent this situation from happening,
Yeah.
I mean, normally there's all these things, everybody sees themselves as a victim and not a persecutor, And then because of this, this actually snowballs into something so big,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Edward. I think Edward brought a good point because in Singapore we don't have the research, unfortunately, but I do have a paper that I was just reading a few days ago, indicating that a lot of the homicidal cases, right, with regards to marriages, precipitate. I mean, in which the women, I guess, killed their husbands. Some of it, a large portion of it, was because of being in an abusive context, lah. I mean, this is definitely unfortunate, but it emphasizes the need for early intervention, right? With regards to the laws, I mean, murder is murder, right? Definitely, murder is murder, and I do think that it's something that a lawyer could advise better, lah, right? How how the decision would be concluded or the charges be dealt with, right? It could be definitely a mitigating factor, right? Being in an abusive relationship. Yeah, I think it could be if you have a good lawyer. Yeah, but I think one thing that I would highlighted is the reality, right? The reality of like how do we also view homicides, right? How do we view murder? Not to justify it, right? But to understand, right? And also that's why we need this like what we call more preventive work, right? I think Amaze is doing a good job. Yeah, just to just summarize this portion of the presentation, right? Violence is not physical. It's not just physical, sorry. Be sensitive towards the signs of control and abuse in language and expectations in a relationship, right? So in the video, we saw the kind of language she was using. I think he called her like a cow. He called her a clown to her son. Yeah, he's in the expectations also. He expected her to just follow what he wanted, not going for the father's birthday or whatnot, right? As volunteers, ask yourself: is this a humane way to be treated, right? Is this a sign of a free and a loving relationship? Yeah, yeah. And violence is always a choice. Whoever commits it is 100% responsible. This caveat, so this is if people have like developmental issues, like sometimes you see children, right? They have regulation issues, they become violent. It's a bit hard, right? Or adults who are disabled, intellectually differently able, is a bit difficult, right? But I'm just talking about the general population, right? To have the belief and to adopt the belief that no matter what the other person have done, right? If there is abuse, right? Except for self-defense, right? The person who commits abuse is 100% responsible, because ultimately it's still a choice, right? It's a choice to raise your hands. It's a choice to use something to hit another person. Yeah. Yeah. So we just go straight into speaking with the victims and survivors. Okay, victims, survivors is used interchangeably. Some people like to call them victims. Some people like to call them survivors. What I like to do is I like to ask my clients, how do you see yourselves? Do you see yourself as a victim, or do you see yourself as a survivor? Right. So often it depends on where they are at, right? If they're seeking help, if they, it really depends on where they're at in the stage of recovery. Yeah. So the title of this slide is it's what not to say, right? What not to say, right? When someone tells you, right, yes, I have been abused, right? It's what not to say. I'll go through it one by one. Right? Saying something like, how do you provoke him? It's blaming, right? It's associating blame with the person who's getting hurt, right? It takes two to tango. It's blaming again, right? Sure, right? I mean, with my wife also, we have arguments, right? Something that can go on for hours, right? Just debating each other, right? Yeah, but I mean, there's a choice to be violent, right? And if tango means being violent, then no, it does not take two to tango. So I mean, it's a very flawed way of talking to an individual who's experiencing violence. Right, the children need a father. Oh wow, yeah. So this one I've heard before, not in the social service sector, but yeah, in some of my external work, right? Yeah, no, right, no, right. The understand where the person may be coming from, right? Wanting to preserve a family unit, the ideal family unit, but the children need a father who is safe. The children need a father who is loving. The children need a father who is appropriate, not a father who is abusive. And something that I mean, this comes out a lot in my work. Right, they need a good father, and I will propose to them to even take the risk, if the violence is continuing, take the risk to kind of question the idea, right? Father, or instead a safe and good role model as an adult, right? I mean, sometimes in religious places or not, you have like older mentors who are male adults that can support the family. And I've seen it before. Yeah, I've seen some of these older men that comes and play the father figure, but yeah, they're just volunteers or whatnot. Not to say that the father cannot change, right? There are cases where fathers who are abusive, husbands who are abusive have changed. And it's very healing for the family, right? But I think at the point where there's this revelation about, or this like, the break of the silence, when I'm abused, I mean, don't say this, right? Really, he's such a nice guy. I just keep it at the back of your mind that people who abuse can tend to be very charming also. They're very smart. right? Very, very smart, know how to conceal, right? Yeah. There's a show by Jack Neo recently, earlier this year. Yeah. So it depicted I think it was a minister. Not a real minister, but in the movie, the character was a minister. And it was just a paradox. It was amplifying the paradox that even the most powerful, even the most charming, even those in the offices of society, right? He depicted this minister as a sexual abuser of his wife. So I mean, it makes us question right? Don't you should go to couples counseling. Yes and no. It can be justified, definitely. It is true. But is this the first thing that you say to someone who's revealed to you that she's being abused? No lah, right? Find out some context, find out the severity of it, right? Thank her for sharing with you. Thank him or her for sharing with you. It may be something to explore, but it's not the first thing that you say to the person, right? Are you aware that it's making it awkward around you? This is where the social and societal expectations come in. We may hear this more in families, right? Don't talk about these things. Or I've heard before also like, my mother told me not to share this thing with the husband's family because it makes things very awkward. Oh, sorry, minimizing or not. We just keep our silence. So you are a strong woman. No lah. I think it's a good affirmation. Not the right time. Not at the right time, right? It's denying, it's minimizing, it's not attending to the person's feelings. Minimizing again, where's the restraining order? Is from a US website, or where the personal protection order. Again, we have to understand that sometimes it takes a while for the person to come to decide to apply, right, for personal protection order. Although right, it is not too a difficult process, but to do something like that to your family member, right, it is very difficult, right? Instead, be a voice of support. Isn't the marriage important to you? Yeah, that's minimizing and justifying behavior. Questioning the person's autonomy and safety. Just avoid it. God hates divorce. So I think I wanted to add this in also because I am quite active churchgoer. And I met a lady who was in an abusive relationship for about 10 years. And she convinced herself to not get a divorce or not to tell anyone because of her relationship with God. So I can say that because I'm of the same faith as her, and I did provide some counsel in asking her, okay, if you believe is God, then what do you believe about God? Most people will say God is love, God is faithful, God wants the best for me, He knows what is best for me, right? Generally, most of the religions align on these things. Okay, then why does God allow you to experience this, right? To help them question, a safe space to question these thoughts, and not to impose it. I mean, I guess with this audience, this may be quite common sense to y'all, But just I think to also note that when people come to you, this is something that they may bring to you, that a family member has said to them, a friend may have said to them, right? A church or a mosque or a temple friend may have said to them also. Right? What you can expect, right? You can expect being shocked, being confused, being sad. And sometimes I want us to highlight on the boxes that says freeze and fawn, right? Sometimes even in conversation, it may be very difficult for them to express what's going on because they are digging back into their memory. It's not a comfortable thing to be digging back into your memory of when you were abused, right? And sharing it with someone, right? So what do we do, right? Sometimes we can wait. Some of us who are more therapeutically inclined or we have the skills, right? We can help with grounding activities, right? You can Google what these are, right? But what I want to share with you is that the brain, the body, right? There are ways, right, that it uses to protect ourselves from feeling stressed, feeling anxious, right? And sometimes as someone that's helping, it can be quite annoying, right? You're trying to help the person, but the person can't string words together, right? You may get a bit impatient. You may get even very worried because after this short discussion, the person, he or she is off to back to the abusive relationship, right? But I do think that it is important to remind ourselves to also be patient, right? For the person to kind of understand what is safety, right? This person may not even know what is safety. So what to say? I just broken up in the two different subsections, right? Validation, right? Validation is so important. I tell you, it's so difficult for someone to say that I've been abused. The kind of shame, the kind of anxiousness, the fear of being abused, right? Validated, right? Thank you for telling me, right? I'm sorry you've been hurt. You're not at fault, right? I understand how difficult it is to change the situation. It may take some time to figure out what to do, right? Hold that tension, right? Hold that tension. For those of us who are very task-oriented, myself included, I have to always hold myself back, right? Before I write out all the plans on the whiteboard, give out send the links about PPO, all that, I have to just take a step back and see where's the client. Is the client ready to hear these things or not, right? Those of you who like psychotherapy or whatnot, Sigmund Freud, he came up with I think he came up with the term trauma, and he used an example. There was a cyclist who broke his leg, right? But couldn't believe that he broke his leg. So he thought he just kept telling himself the pain of somewhere else. It took some time for him to accept that he broke his leg and life would be different. It's very similar to abuse. It would take some time for the person to accept that someone that they love, someone that they gave their life to, abuse them. And care and concern, right? Care, concern, and support. This may be something that is foreign or new to the person who has been abused, right? You are not alone. There are people who can help you. This is against the law, right? No one deserves to be treated this way. I will support you no matter what you decide to do. I am very glad you told me. I care, I'm concerned about the health and safety of you and your children. These things, sometimes it's common sense, but we have to say it, that your words have a lot of power. Something that I wanted to emphasize, especially if you are working with transnational families, saying things like there are people who can help you, and this is against the law, right, is very liberating for someone who comes from a country where there aren't strong institutions, right? So I remember there was one session I said it, and then there was a shift. She was very elated because from the country that she was in, right, her husband did threaten, he threatened her by saying, I will bring you back to the country and I'll kill you there and no one will find out. Right, that's the kind of context that we're dealing with. And now that these people, all these people are being exposed, right, to the good institution, right? I have no xenophobic intent when I say these people, rather the people that come to Singapore, right, they start a life here, they contribute to our economy, they do great things for us, and we also support them, right? It's a shift, it's a shift that we have to emphasize. I could go into structuring a safety plan and whatnot, but I think for the purpose of the audience today, given that they're volunteers, the two main things, right, is immediate safety, right? If there is abuse that is happening, connect with the volunteer managers, right? If there's abuse that's happening right in front of you, call the police, right? There's also the National Anti-Violence and Sexual Harassment Helpline, right? You could call them to also report the abuse. That's how you have seen it. The reason why I put a Google screenshot is because you just have to Google that, then you'll see it. Yeah. On the right, we see also the protection specialist centers, right? You have PAVE, which is Integrated Services for Individual and Family Protection Specialist Center, TransSafe, Care Corner Project Start. These are your family violence protection specialists. No, they're called protection specialist centers, right? That specializes in family violence issue. But I have to make a caveat, because of my knowledge being in the sector. Sometimes they only take what they deem, right? It's based on their assessment, what they deem as high risk cases. So if they look at your case, they may refer you to a nearby FSC, Family Service Center, to get the appropriate intervention. In terms of informal resources, explore with the client, right? The people that I'm working with, if they have friends to tap on, family members to tap on. I just wanted to emphasize that it's so important to explore these conversations because it's very hard for the person to think of it. It's very hard. Once you are in a state of being abused or in a state where you're hypervigilant, sometimes it's very hard to concretize what solutions are. So what I like to do is try, who is your safety network, right? Safety network, or who are the safe people in your life, right? Sometimes you will find that the client has great resources. One of my experiences was that the safe person was actually her restaurant manager, who provided her with lodging, because they have this lodging for all the staff, and it was extremely important for her to slowly transit out of the relationship, because it was getting too bad already for repair, right? I also want to highlight the existence of the personal protection order. Some of us may know this. So for domestic violence issues, especially in between family members, sometimes punches are thrown, there are slaps, sometimes there are even chairs or whatever is thrown, whatever. But when the police come to the doorstep, unless they see the person holding a weapon, right, or if they dialogue with the family and they find out, right, that there was a weapon used, then they may apprehend the person. I say may because from the experiences, I see that it's really dependent on the police officer on the ground, right? It's quite sad. I think the police also, as we work together, we can also concretize the SOPs lah. Yeah, but I've seen some police officers are more proactive. Some police officers, they have their judgments. I shan't question it, but they have their judgments, and yeah, they may not apprehend the abuser. But the thing is, how do we ensure that the victim is safe? Right, the survivor is safe, right? Applying for personal protection order, right? Under the personal protection order, right? If the victim experiences physical harm, right, continuous harassment. This could be in the terms of text messages, calls. Harassment also is like when the abuser calls the victim's workplace like non-stop, right? Wrongful confinement, locking the person inside the house, locking the person inside the door. You lock the person outside the house, actually is not considered like that. It's not under the law. Or threats, right? Putting someone in the fear of hurt, right? Pointing a knife, that is a very little form of hurt. Saying that I will hit you, right? Some of the threatening stares, right? These things then will come under the personal protection order, and hopefully, right? Hopefully the police would follow up in apprehending or in making sure that if there's a breach, there are consequences lah. Under the personal protection order, there's the expedited order. So when you apply for it, right, you get because it will take a while because there has to be a trial. What we call the complainant. So the person that complainant, the person who abused is the respondent, right? There is a trial lah. Yeah. So but if the judge decides that okay, this is too bad, it's too dangerous already. Before the trial happens, I'm going to give this person an expedited order. So that then this complainant has a piece of paper. Violence happens, he or she can pass the paper to the police, right? Only valid for 28 days. There's a personal protection order, which that is the actual order. Cannot incite or assist anyone to commit violence against the applicant. The examples are in the yellow box. And there's also the domestic exclusion order, right? This is like I would say like a significant add-on, right? When you apply for PPO, a personal protection order, you can have the option to also apply for DEO, right? The offender is either a full DEO, which is the offender or the abuser cannot enter the home or cannot enter into some rooms of the home. So it could be like, the abuser is not allowed to enter the room with the children sleeps in, and then maybe the mother was sleeping in that room, right? It can be applied with the PPO or even after the judge has decided PPO. So that's like what we call a variation lah, right? These applications are done in the family justice courts, so they can go down personally. Ideally go from 9 to 12 p.m. I see that they respond better than at those timings. Or it can by right, it can be done at all these centers also. Pay, Transsafe, Care Corner, Product Start. The government has made the application of the personal protection order more accessible for the everyday individual. Right? Instead of going down to the courts, it can be very scary. Right? Go to these centers. This is the resource. Okay, I think I'm slowly running out of time, but I would want to just cover speaking with perpetrators. I'm not too sure whether you would have experience, but I want to just highlight this because oftentimes when we talk about violence, there's so much talk about the victims. So I've just kind of taken this information from a medical journal, fantastic medical journal by Singapore, a Singapore medical team from I think CGH, and they kind of segmentized some of the things to look out for, right? What we call risk factors. So what it says is that if these individuals have these characteristics, then it could be possible, not that it will, but it could be possible that it may contribute to violent behavior lah, right? So let's see. Yeah. So there's substance abuse, personality traits, right? Jealousy, hostility, anger management, social isolation, lack of accountability. This is something that I would think is pertinent in this Amaze network lah, because sometimes when the sisters leave the prison, then their network is sometimes they don't have a network. History of exposure to abuse in their childhood, right? Lack of openness in conversations about gender equality, right? These things are also something that we note. We also see relationships, right? So this is the interaction, poor communication, conflict management issues, the need for power, the need for control over everything. Yeah, so these are some theories that you can go and read up on lah. Social learning theory, life course theory. How does this contribute to violence? Socialization issues in childhood contributing to a poor sense of self. Culture, how our culture, some cultures would teach that the man is dominant, the woman must be submitted to the man under all circumstances. Separation could be a instigation of conflict and violence, and unhealthy family relationships lah. Yeah. And community factors, right? These are more like the individual's interaction with community. So we're looking at the stress factors, right? What are the stress factors? Loss of job, economic stress, poverty and associated issues. Why am I highlighting these things? Not that people are unemployed will be violent. No, it's just that these things are additional stresses to a person who has, I would say, maladaptive behaviors. Maladaptive behaviors in being violent, right? This means that they are maladaptive to stress when they are stressed. These are additional stresses that they are facing. Another thing that the journal highlighted was the impact of pandemic-related safe management measures. Yeah, I was quite surprised to read it in the journal, but I realized, yeah, it's true, right? When we had the circuit breaker, yeah, there was an increase in the number of cases, family violence cases. Societal factors, patriarchal values, social factors like the dependency for nationality, LTVP, limiting the individual's access, like the victim's access to the outside world, outside of the family, outside of the household. Yeah, I wanted to also highlight that when it comes to lethality, you see in the box, and in the orange box below, we also need to look at some things like strangulation, right? Strangulation is worse than hitting, right? It's hard to find that, oh, you're strangling, but you don't pretend to kill, right? It's on the way to death, right? When you strangle someone. Violence during pregnancy, goodness, right? There's also it's a high lethality factor, very high lethality factor. Why? Because it shows an insensitivity to the vulnerability of the individual and the individual in the womb, right? So there's two individuals, right? The individual who is pregnant, which is the lady, who is vulnerable, right? Because she's pregnant, right? She may not have the full ability to defend herself. Plus the child in the womb. Something I want to highlight about this, I don't know if it's relevant for you, but something I've been coming across is violence during pregnancy, which is very intentional in trying to kill the child. Yeah, so this is when there are unplanned or unsupported pregnancies among young people. Yeah, there is that issue also . Yeah, violence with the intent to kill the child. Yeah. Yeah. So when talking to people who use violence, right? Yeah, never say things like, I can understand why you may choose to hit, right? Like the problem is the choose to hit, right? You can understand how the person feels, but you can never justify the decision to hit. Right? Never justify. You can try to understand how the person feels, but never justify. But this statement may unintentionally contribute to the person thinking, oh yeah, actually I hit it's okay lah. I was just very, very angry. At least this person, and at least this volunteer I'm speaking to believes I'm angry and I hit. Right? Some people may say, oh, it's only a one-off thing. Yeah, then yeah. Okay, you can agree, you cannot agree. You cannot agree that it's a one-off thing. How will you justify it, right? As someone who is part of this organization, someone who is should have a zero tolerance towards violence, committed to the safety of individuals, how will you justify it as a one-off thing, right? And you leave the person who is abusing thinking that every time it can be a one-off thing, right? It's like something like when we binge or snack or whatever, we just think it's a one-off thing, right? But it's not, right? We have wrong confirmation biases, right? That comes to us, and we don't want to perpetuate it. if she knew you were angry, she should not have done it, right? This is something that you shouldn't say to a victim. You should also shouldn't say to a perpetrator, right? Yeah. Why did she say that to you? I knew you've been angry, or yeah. It was I can understand why you would say it's her fault lah that led you to hit her. No, right. No violence can be justified. In my conversations with people who cause harm also, I have this very distressing case lah. So what happened was the medical report came out and there were bruises on the lady's neck, right, because of a rod, right? I don't know why the guy has a rod in the house, a metal rod. And the individual said in the session, no, I just tapped her only. And she's exaggerating, right? But he doesn't know that I have a medical report lah. Eventually we relate to him like in a therapeutic manner. Yeah, but I mean, we can expect these things, you see. So be very careful. Even when you're talking, right? This is something I also learned. I had to like practice in front of the mirror. Like something as you nod, right? As you nod, oh, yeah. Be careful when you say, because it may be unintentionally like colluding with the individual. Yeah, this is, just being self-aware lah, right? You can connect, right? You can convey your disagreement, but never justify. How do you connect? Right, my center and we just ran a group work for men, and a lot of the men who use violence, these are men who use violence, they resonated with this anger iceberg. Yeah, right. That beneath the anger, there's a lot of feelings that are unattended. You can connect to those things, but you have to put your foot down to say that violence cannot be justified. Right, you can connect by talking to them about their history, their childhood history. Right, oh yeah, I saw my father beat my mother. I saw that when I was growing up, so this is an example that I came across also. This guy said that he grew up in boys' home. So fighting was his only way of keeping himself alive, right? Or survival. Then he adopted this in his marriage. So, right, it was great insight, very great insight by this individual, connecting with him, and him also agreeing that violence should not be justified amongst any circumstances, right? If you have the opportunity to, as volunteers, you can also talk about the anger thermometer, right? At which point are you the most angry? What makes you calm? What helps you be calm, right? It could be things like the thought of my child, my job, right? Do you want to go into prison? Take these things to kind of help the person to cool down, or consider cooling down. Yeah, but connect, convey, but never. Let's be very careful. Never justify. Yeah. So, what more can you do? I think I'll just very quickly like go through this case in highlighting the complexities lah. So I mean, as we know, there's this ongoing issue in the UK, in Australia, in many parts of the world about violence, and issues about how celebrities also have been abusive. On your left, you have this footballer named Mason Greenwood, and on his right is his ex-partner who alleged that he abused her. So I'm highlighting this now because now, right, the situation in the UK is that that he was like all the charges have been dropped. Yeah, all the charges have been dropped because the witnesses have withdrawn their statements, and there was some new information which was not revealed to the public lah. I am no judge, and I cannot say if this happened. All I can say is that there was a video, there was an allegation, right, and it may look like it's true. However, right, with this like development of the law, where suddenly all the charges are dropped, with no clear like justification why, no precise justification why, my concern is how are the young boys that are looking up to this footballer, right, understanding this case. Am I safe because I'm a celebrity? Am I safe because I have money, right? Can I do these things as long as I have my safeguards in check, right? I'm not saying that he did because I don't know. It's more likely that I would say that he did, right, because of the reports and because that there were witnesses, right? But the reason I'm highlighting is that it is a dilemma and difficulty. The law which preaches to protect, the law which preaches to want to protect the vulnerable, in itself has its own inefficiencies and ineffectiveness, and has social, unintended, and invisible repercussions. This is something that is at the back of my mind as I think about what more I can do in society. Right? Sorry, this is so the victims are willing to report. I think we have to reframe it, right? Apologies for writing that. It's victims having barriers to report, right? It's not that victims are unwilling, right? We cannot blame the victim, right? But instead, it's victims having barriers to report. Yeah, so I did edit it. Yeah. But legal waiting times, evidence gathering, these are the dilemmas and difficulties as we think about what more can we do. So just for this group, I think two main things, especially that what we need in Singapore, like peer education and advocacy. Currently, this is me just doing my snowball survey, right? Talking to different individuals, right? People very often don't want to intervene still, right? Ask yourself, would you intervene? And I can tell you it's possible to intervene, right? It is possible to intervene. I'm sharing this example not to blow my horn, but I just want to share with you that it's possible because there was one time I was studying at home and then I heard like a bucket, being thrown. I think in the neighboring flat. I leaped and I just tried to find the unit, immediately called the police, got the police to come down, right? It's as simple as that, right? You just, count the number of floors, you try to see the unit, don't interact, don't put yourself in harm's way, but call the police. It's very possible, right? Another time also, I mean, there was this old uncle harassing this beer lady, or very common in Singapore, beer lady. Just when I asked him, what is he doing? Right? I mean, maybe for me, I'm 6 foot, so maybe I don't mind being a bit more confrontational. I won't encourage it, right? But I think just letting them know, letting the people who are abusing know that someone's watching you is good enough, right? And also letting your peers and friends know that if something like this happens, go and do something about it, right? We live very private lives in Singapore, unfortunately, and this kind of, I mean, I would almost say it almost makes us complicit. Our silence makes us complicit. Educate people that there are resources, right? It doesn't matter like what education level. A lot of people don't know that they can report like domestic violence because it's been so normalized in their households, right? Yeah, share. It's okay to ask one lah. I mean, it's okay to ask, your husband, your wife, everything okay or not? You any fighting, any physical fight? Just ask lah. Just ask. Really, if you say no, then no lor. But because as a volunteer, right, you are in a position of concern, right? You may be like the saving light, right? Just ask. No one may have asked them. Being the support network, I put in these 3 things, accommodation, money, and being a listening ear. I wanted to share with you an initiative by this organization called Safe Place. They are an organization that supports unsupported pregnancies. They support women who are incarcerated. Even they do sessions while the lady has a child, the child removed, right? Child protection. That's how it could be connected to a maze. But a beautiful thing that they do is that they connect houses, right? They have they partner with families, families, right, to house the women who have unsupported pregnancies. Why? Because in some families, these are girls, I shouldn't even call them women. They're like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, getting pregnant, right? Thrown out of the house, abused, beaten by their boyfriends, right? Trying to kill the baby, right? And they have to have like safe spaces for these individuals. I don't know if you all know, I think The Last Resort is by Eddie and Kenneth. Yeah. It's a resource online. They also house troubled youth who come from difficult households also. So there are people in Singapore who are opening up their homes. The fostering environment also is quite good, fostering to give the child a safe place to stay before reunification of family. These are ways that you can support a bit more than volunteering. Money is a good way to donate. I think find the right channels to donate, but sometimes all these women, they do need some sort of like interim financial independence per se, because they are, or women or men, sorry, because those who are victims are often dependent on the abusers on finances. And of course, be a listening ear. It's not easy. This work is dark. It's very dark work. It's distressing. I would say sometimes as I go back home, I tear up a bit. I have to find my safe space also in my family or in my friends. if you can, yeah, be that listening ear and pace with the client as the client recovers. Yeah. So with that, I've come to the end of the presentation. Sorry for overrunning quite a fair bit, about 7 minutes. Yeah, but if there's any other questions, you can either email me or contact me through Louis or William lah. Yeah.
Daniel, thanks for your sharing. Actually, as a case manager, I find the information you share is very useful for me also, yeah, as a practitioner. Yeah. So actually, if they have questions, they can, or do you have an email they can write to you?
Yes.
Are
Let me just.
you okay?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't put it on the slide. Yeah.
Okay, while doing that, just I also have posted the feedback form. Please, before you go, please do fill out the feedback form. Yeah. Okay, so so just then write to Daniel. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
can
you.
just attention to me or or you want Kumar is a good mentor, so I can ask him also anything. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I mean, look at that. I'm not sure. I mean, those who need to leave, you all can leave. But I'm not sure whether anyone got any pressing questions they may still want to ask at this point of time. I mean, if Daniel, you're still okay to stay
Yes,
for a while.
sure. Yeah.
Can I venture one question? Yeah. This PPO, I mean, normally it actually goes in favor of those which are more vulnerable, right? The more vulnerable party. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how they actually ascertain truth, you know. I mean, the wife who doesn't like the husband can say, you know, oh, the husband is trying to molest my 3-year-old daughter or whatever. And then, you know, naturally, I mean, the PPO will be awarded to her and the child, you know. Yeah. So I mean, I've also some cases where, you know, there's this low IQ person, you know, who's actually more or less made use of by the older and older men, you know. So I was wondering what kind of protection can we render, or what area, which organization can go to seek help, you know, to, you know, get protection.
So this is the just to clarify, this individual is a younger lady who is being taken advantage of by the older men. And this is within the family or?
No, the low IQ one is a guy, is a separate person. Actually, the thing is somehow or other he got to know this man, and the old man actually I think he's into drugs, you know. Yeah. So yeah, so this young guy, you know, he's low IQ, all that, and then I don't know how can he actually protect himself.
Yeah, well, this is tough because this will go under it won't fall under the PPO already, because they are not bound by family relations. Yeah, and it's sorry, I mean not to reveal
then I can jump in to help. Edward, this would fall under the Vulnerable Persons Act, Vulnerable Adults Act. So if this person is above 21, then it will be covered under that act.
Above 21.
Above 21. If the person is below 21, then the Children's and Young Persons Act will get activated. Yeah.
Okay.
So especially because it involves sexual abuse and manipulation of the person for certain individuals' gratification. So it falls under that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a different law that governs this, whereas the law that Daniel was speaking about is the law under Women's Charter, which covers for individuals within the family itself.
So let's say this low IQ person, if he doesn't go to the organization for protection, you know, even though he's above 21, his parents can go on his behalf, right?
Yes, someone will be able to act on, and usually someone else who acts on their behalf.
Yeah.
So it could be a family member, could be also a member of public, but usually the ministry will guide through the process itself. But they take this very seriously, which is why Singapore is one of those unique countries with this law specifically put there.
I just wanted to highlight, Edward, also, if you are part of a formal organization and if it has been revealed to you that there is sexual abuse. I mean, I know different organizations have their own protocol, but bound by Singapore law, we are mandated to report.
Yeah, correct. That's right. Yeah.
So if you feel your hands are tied, then you can, section 424 lah. Yeah, we are mandated to report lah. Yeah.
Actually, this case is actually from another party lah. So the thing is, I
Oh.
mean, it's not my client.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Edward.
Thanks, Edward. Okay, I think it's 9:12. Maybe I think maybe we can just call it for a day. Yeah. Many thanks, Daniel again and Kumar for being here, really spending a precious
Thank you.
evening with us. And I can sense, really hear your passion and commitment to this. Yeah. And hopefully today's information is useful and give us really a handle, at least when we're able to identify and able to do something about it. Yeah, because I think what from gathered today is really everyone's responsibility, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a good evening. See you all.
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you.
indicated on the chat the safe place lah. So if the Organization for Unsupported Pregnancies, it's because I mentioned them earlier. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, by Lakeside. Thanks, Angela. Okay. See y'all. Take care. Have a good evening.
Take care. Hope you get well soon.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.